Hi 7th graders, and welcome to Monday, November 30th. We will be doing lessons 33 and 34 today. This is the beginning of a new chapter, and I don't think it will be terribly difficult material. It's 2 lessons, and I believe I've assigned work from the second. I'm not sure. I'm not actually looking at the has, but we want to begin today by talking about verbs. So we are moving into a new chapter. This is chapter 4. We are on page 153 of your green text. If you don't have the textbook and paper and pencil, go ahead and hit pause and go get those things so that we are ready to go. You will want to take some notes just on a couple of things, and so or put the information on some index cards, but either way, get those things in front of you. Okay, so we are going to begin with lesson 33. That is on page 153, and so go ahead and turn there. And we're talking about verbs, and so these are the action words in a sentence. When we have a sentence like, Sally kicked the can, we want to say who kicked the can because we want to find out the subject first, but then we want to figure out what the subject is doing, saying, what the subject is, and there's a lot of words that we are going to see can paint that picture for us. There are categories of verbs, and we will get to those down the road, but for right now, I just want you to think about all the different kinds of verbs that you see. This is called the simple predicate, and it can be words like walk, run, sing, dance, jump, gallop. Of course, the better verbs we call strong verbs in our writing, and so that's what you should be thinking of. Let's get rid of walk, run, and think of words like gallop and perhaps meander instead of walk, or saunter. So we want to be looking in a thesaurus for stronger words that can help us make our writing even better. A verb phrase is when we pack additional words around the verb. Most often those are going to be helping verbs. We're going to look at some of those specific helping verbs, but here's some examples based on the words that I just used. Will walk, that's future. Has run, had sung. Will dance, had jumped. Will gallop. So when we put a helping verb next to our verb, or we put something like not, will not walk, or will not run, or will not walk slowly. When we begin to pack adverbs and the helping verbs around our verbs, we get what's called a verb phrase. It consists of the main verb and any helping verbs. Okay. We can also have compound verbs, and we've seen those when we diagram, because you know that we diagram those on a pencil point, just like we would do a compound subject or a compound direct object. We put those on that little pencil point or arrow or whatever you call yours. But a compound verb it means multiple verbs, and it's connected by a conjunction, and you know those: and, or, nor, but, for. So we could have walk and run, sing and dance, cook and bake, sleep and snore, eat and drink, and we could add multiples. I don't know that there's a limit, but you want it all to make sense and to not be a run-on, so you don't want too many there. Now let's talk about those helping verbs that I referred to in a previous slide. If you look on page 153, below the gray box, I've covered all the stuff in the gray box, but if you look at page 153, you'll see 2 definitions there: action verbs and being verbs. The action verbs are the ones that we can see in our mind, and the being verbs are the ones like is, are, was, were, that we can't, I call them boring verbs. And they are the verbs that will connect predicate nominatives and adjectives. The action verbs tend to connect us with direct objects. Either way, we have some of these being verbs. If you'll look on this slide, we have multiple categories, and you do need to learn this. This would be one of the things that I would put in an index card or that I would write in my notes. The forms of be: am, is, are, was, were, be, been, and being. Now, if you've done Shirley grammar, then you have learned the jingle. Am, is, are, was, and were, be, being, been. So if you want to learn that little jingle, then you will get a prize on Wednesday when you come in. I haven't decided what yet. I'm kind of running out of ideas, so I need to think about that, but you'll get a little prize. So here it is again. Am, is, are, was, and were, be, being, been. So that's the forms of be, little jingle from Shirley. There's also the forms of have, has, had. You should be pretty familiar with those. Then we have forms of do, and all these are in your book on page 153. But the forms of do, does, did, and the forms of may, might, and must. And you see on each of these slides it says to learn these, because I want to see them. If you diagram them, I want to see them in the diagramming line. Others that are just miscellaneous categories: can, could, shall, should, will, and would. So all of these should be on your notes, and so if you bring your notes in and you memorize that little jingle, so I'm kind of expanding the prize opportunity. You have to bring some notes with all of these helping verbs or an index card, and you have to be able to say the am, is, are. And we'll see what we can do about, maybe I'll have a little snack basket so that you can have a little snack later in the afternoon. Okay, so we've learned about the helping verbs. Now let's move on to lesson 34. I told you these were going to be pretty easy. And so lesson 34 is moving us into more of the intricacies, and there's something called principal parts of verbs. But I want you to look on page 157. There's this lovely chart there, and this lovely chart gives you the principal parts of a lot of common verbs. And so if you're not sure what the past or the past participle is of a verb, this is where I would look. I would suggest that you take a picture of this or make a copy of it and that you keep it in your notebooks. If I remember, I'll try to make copies of it for you, but it's pretty easy to grab your mom's phone, take a picture of it, print it out, and then you've got it to put in your notebook. Now, a verb has three principal parts, and these show tense. And the first principal part is present, the second principal part is past, and the third principal part is past participle. And we're going to talk about future. We can kind of talk about it here, but we've got to remember that we have the present, the past form, and then another past form called past participle. And we'll be talking about these more as we go on. But I want you just to remember these, and you can look at that nice little chart to see how the verbs are broken down. Now, the second and third principal parts. So the normal verb, sing, that's just the normal verb. That's the first. That's the present. But then we would have the second and third. And sing is probably not a good example because you can't add ed to that. But how about let's go to walk. Walk is a normal regular verb. I walk. And then if you want to make it past, you would add ed. I walked. The third principal part, I have walked. And people who are grammarians who really enjoy grammar, there are things that you can communicate about the past tense, and then when you add the have walked, that communicate something else. I have walked generally means that it's longer than maybe just I walked yesterday, but I have walked for 3 weeks. Gives more information. So there are reasons for using that. Okay, so here's an example. Today I washed dishes. Yesterday I washed dishes. Every day I have washed the dishes. So when we add that have, it just gives us a little bit more information. We've also added some other words in there, and it's going to be important to know when to add that have, has, had, or the be, being, and been. It's important to know that. So let's move on. So here is some of the information I have taken off of page 159. So if you look there, you have another chart, and this is just like a little blip in time, because the big chart that I've already referred to on page 157 is a much more thorough one. So we've just pulled a few out onto this slide. So here's some of them, and these are some of the unusual. Now normally walk, walked, have walked, jump, jumped, have jumped. Normally you're going to add ed. But remember, there are children all over the world who are trying to learn the English language, and that ed rule does not apply to all of the verbs in the world. So they're going to get really confused. Let's look at some of the words that they're going to get confused on. Words like bring. We can't add ed to that. We can't say bringed. Now, when you were 2, you probably did say, Mommy, I bringed this to you. But you can't do that when you're in 7th grade. So we have bring, brought, and have brought. We still have the have, but we don't have that ed thing going on. I find. You can't say finded. I find, found, have found. Dig, dug, have dug. I added the ed. Have dug. You can't add ed to dig, although children will. Mom, I digged today. Begin, began, have begun. There we change the word every time. Draw, drew, have drawn. There we've changed it every time. Sing, sang, have sung. So you can see that there are some unusual spellings. The rule for ed does not always apply, and these are some of those unusual ones. So make sure you take a look at those. Again, have that nice little chart, and that will help you to know what the principal parts are. So that's all I have for you. Today we are going to look at class practice, and let me get to the page that I want to do. Okay, so what I want you to do is look on page 160, and I want you to do the 3 principal parts of the odd ones there. Include have with the 3rd principal part. So you're just going to be doing 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So hit pause and do those, and then I will come back and I will recite what those answers are so that you know and hopefully are on the right track as you begin your homework either today or tomorrow. So go ahead and hit pause, do that, and then come back. Okay, if you're back, I assume that you have done 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So let me begin with number 1. Number 1 is break, broke, have broken. So that's one that does not get the ed. Number 3 is choose, chose, have chosen. 5 is draw, drew, have drawn. 7, know, knew, have known. 9, rise, rose, have risen. 11 is swing, swung, have swung. And there was only one that I see in here that did have the ed. That was number 4, drag, dragged, have dragged. And I believe that drug is also can also be used. But you'll see there's a lot that do not use the ed ending. Generally, that's what it is, but you have to realize that there's a lot of spellings that actually change the word. So I will plan to see you on Wednesday when we will go over this a little bit more and move on in our book. And I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you then.